Welcome to a summary of my Go experience in Asia. I studied there for a little bit less than a year, but I stayed a little bit longer than that. And through this video, I hope we can shed some light about all the options we Westerners have there. We mostly have the same options as the Asians. We might be restricted out of some dojangs unless you're very strong. But overall, those schools are commercial enterprises, so they want to make money. If you're polite enough and you have the money, you can get in. Before we move on, let's clear out some misconceptions that very few people have at this point, since information is actually widely available online. But let's go over some rant time. Throughout this privileged period of my life, some people ask me for info, and it's all fine. I'm glad to help, but some few of them were a bit rude. They treated me as if I were some free tour guide, and that's one of the reasons I'm creating this video right now, to avoid this sort of weird interaction. Well, at least buy me a coffee if you're gonna be rude and direct towards me in that sense. But anyways, unless you're studying Go under a rock, ignoring all the online resources we have, you're not gonna have your force unleashed out of nowhere. You're gonna have your growth rate increase, but it might take some time for you to improve, especially if you're past the Q range. It's not gonna be 1 month in Asia that's going to have you get a breakthrough. Maybe you get a breakthrough after that first month if you keep on practicing, but usually 1 month there is more for experimentation. So many other talented kids struggling at the dojangs. You might be a special player, but well, it's very rare for anyone to have a major breakthrough just because they went to Asia. Personally, I went to Asia not only for Go. I wanted to move there. I come from Brazil, from Sao Paulo, and that culture is very different. I was very curious. Initially, I went to Japan, and I wanted to experience life there, not only Go. Over time, Go took over a much bigger part of my life. But yeah, that was the overall plan, to settle myself there for living, not only for studying Go. These days, we have the internet and we have AI. I think the internet is way more impactful for you to choose not to go to Asia. But both of these factors make it so we can improve at a much larger, much faster rate than, let's say, 40 years ago without going to Asia. In the past, we needed to move over to the other part of the globe in order to get stronger players for us to practice with. But today, we can just open up whatever Asian server appeals to you and find a strong enough opponent to either play with or to learn from. We can even get online lessons. Sometimes we can get online lessons for free even. We have YouTube with so much content from even pro players. We don't need to go to Asia to study if we don't have the means. But going there makes a difference because the environment is way more suitable for learning Go. There are more events, more players, more teachers. They have better methodologies, although they should study methodologies way more, because a lot of what they have as teaching methods comes from maybe 1,000 years ago. I don't know, maybe even longer than that. Well, if it ain't broken, just keep going, right? If you want to become stronger, if you have the willpower, you don't need to go to Asia. Do I still recommend going there if you have the budget? Absolutely. It's a once-in-a-lifetime experience if you have the budget only for a once-in-a-lifetime experience. But yeah, it's totally worth it if you have the budget. The culture itself is probably enough to justify having that experience, because when it comes to teaching, they think differently from us Westerners. And if you're used to the Western style of teaching then of and learning, going there will just add up to whatever you know. I would totally recommend it, but you don't need to. You don't need to go there if you don't have the means, and don't feel frustrated if you can't go. We have all the resources online to get to pro level, maybe even past that. If you become strong enough to challenge the pros, you can still train with AI and maybe take lessons from very strong pros. Moving over to how much it costs for us to stay in Korea or Japan. In Japan, we only have one option if you want to stay at a dojo or study at a dojo, and that is Hon Dojo. That was the first place I went to. It's in Tokyo, on the western side of Tokyo, on the nicest areas in the periphery of Tokyo. And it's one of the most affordable dojos in Asia outside of China. I think in China you can get dojos for very cheap. Yeah, China is an option. I just don't know what options are there. When it comes to accommodation for Hon Dojo, you can stay there, but the house where the dojo happens isn't that big. And at the time I was studying there, there was already an insane living at that house. I don't know how crowded it will be for you to stay there. Hon Seisen, the founder and owner of the dojo, doesn't charge that much more for you to live there. But I don't think he's going to take any randos just because they pay a little bit more. I think you would need to get into some sort of agreement with him. Dojangs in Korea sometimes offer accommodation as well. It might be more uncomfortable than Hon Dojo, because you're gonna be in rooms with many other people, maybe one other person, sometimes more than that, and you're gonna be sleeping in bunk beds. And the price will be higher than 1 million won. Korea seems to be more expensive for studying Go on average. Japan is a little bit lower nowadays because the yen is weaker and they have fewer players at this point. Other than that, if you want the international schools, we have BIBA and PBA. BIBA charges more. I think they are in a nicer part of town, at least when it comes to social life. PBA might have a better deal, but I don't know. I stayed in both, and they both have pros and cons. I stayed for 6 months at BIBA and 3 months at PBA, and 3 months at Hon Dojo. I actually didn't live at the dojo, but I think I slept some nights there, and it's all fine. But well, it's a shared space. We're gonna talk more about these options and some more as well. But overall, these are the prices. I think for Europeans and Americans, this is very affordable. For people outside of the US and Europe, it can get very expensive. These prices are negotiable. Don't try to haggle too much with the owners, because then the experience might get tainted a bit once you're there. Oh, and for BIBA, this price range is because they offer discounts for if you stay longer than a month or so. They have some sort of dynamic discount depending on how long you stay. Hon Dojo was the first place I went to last year. It's headed by a former Korean Yonguseng. Yonguseng is the equivalent of Insei, and he didn't manage to become a professional in Korea. Later, he moved to Japan to teach, but through amateur competitions, he managed to become a pro in Japan. Hon Sen became my instructor, teacher, and coach once I enrolled at the dojo. And right away, he was extremely helpful, and he's helpful to everybody. Everybody loves him, and rightfully so. He is one of the kindest and nicest people I've ever met. It was a privilege to know him. Well, he's still alive, of course. I'm talking about him as if it's over, but one day I would like to meet him again. He is, like I said, not only a teacher, not only an instructor, he is also a coach. What does that mean? Well, I would say that a coach does something different from a teacher or an instructor. A coach might manage you not only on the game itself, but around it. Maybe you mismanaged the game because you mismanaged your emotions. And in that sense, it's very helpful for somebody else to point that out, because it's not always evident to you. And there's more to the game than the game itself. You're a person playing the game, you're not a computer. So we all need somebody to help us manage that. I'm saying coach here, but maybe that's the definition of a manager. I don't know. Semantics, I don't know. But well, moving on to what the training was. In the mornings, people solve tsumegos. Then during the afternoon, we have either league games or just random small tournaments or just random games. And during the evening, sometimes we would review our games with a pro teacher or a strong teacher. The three regular teachers at the dojo were Hosei-sen, two other 9-dan amateurs, ex-inseis. But sometimes we would get, not sometimes, but very often, we would get two 9-dan pros, two older 9-dan pros, visiting and mostly teaching during the evening. So we could get reviews from them. Most of the time, the people getting reviews were the stronger players, and we would just watch. We could ask questions, but if you're not strong enough, maybe try to avoid asking too many questions, I guess. When it comes to strength, when I arrived, I was around 5 to 6 Dan Fox. And that was enough to be at the bottom end of the stronger players. There were some weaker players than 5 to 6 Dan Fox, but maybe only 2 or 3 in total. The rest were consisting of 7 Dan Fox and above, usually. There were some 6 Dan Fox as well, but mostly 7 to 9 Dan Fox. And I could get interesting games against them. They just wouldn't last that long. But I don't think it bothered them too much, and I think it was a nice experience. But yeah, if you're weaker than 5 Dan Fox, it might not be the best experience to you, because it might become frustrating. And it might become frustrating for other players as well. People who were weaker than 5 Dan Fox usually were not restricted to a specific class, but they would stay in a different room at different times to learn from one of the teachers more directly. But that didn't happen as often as every day. Maybe it's better for you to go there only if you're beyond 5 Dan Fox, I guess. All of the students there are much more polite than I'll ever be. From the 5-year-old to the 17-year-old, they are all lords and ladies. And I'm not too impolite, but I do feel a little bit off place there. But on another topic, I didn't like too much the playing on the floor thing. I feel like my focus was impacted by it. Maybe it's something I couldn't get used to, but I don't like having to track my posture as well as the game. If I sit on a chair, I can just sit on a chair. That's it. After about 3 months, my visa was about to expire. I went there with a tourist visa. And for those of you who never experienced that, after 3 months, you usually need to get out of the country. And then, if you still want to stay in that country, you can come back because most countries allow you to stay for 6 months in a 1 year period. However, you can only stay for 6 months in a maximum of 3 months batches. So after 3 months, you move out and then come back. That's what they call a visa run. I was going to do that through Korea because in 2017, I stayed for a month at BIBA. I already knew people in Korea. It would be very practical for me to stay 1 or 2 weeks with them before going back to Japan. However, I was feeling a little bit battered by all the games against stronger players that I had been playing. Stronger players past 6, 7, 8 dan. They have a way of poking at you, poking at your shapes that make you slowly collapse or maybe have a sudden collapse from positions that you might be winning. Usually in the opening, I would be either on par or even better than them because I was following AI to a T back then. I think they were surely also surprised that I was able to stay even with them for so long during the opening. But after maybe the second or first fight, it would be not disastrous necessarily, but things would be very much in their favor. And so when I arrived in Korea, I was kind of sad, burnt out. And in that sense, Diana and Blackie helped me a lot. And I have to be very thankful to them for cheering me up and helping me improve from that low point. I had been improving, it's just that the emotional side of things was quite off at that point. Diana and Blackie helped a lot. Blackie stayed for only a short period of time during my first few months there because he was often in China. He's still often in China, I think. He teaches at a large school there. If there are more students than Diana can keep up with, she hires another strong pro to help. That's Park Jong-soo. He is, in my opinion, much stronger than 4P. He became a pro at 14, which is not super unusual among the prodigies, but you're still a prodigy, right? Well, he's 10 times stronger than I'll ever be at 14, or maybe even more than 10 times. Going back to the whole BIBA proposition, they are a bridge between the West and Asia. And in that sense, if you're going to Asia without knowing Korean or Japanese, I think you should take one of these options, the bridge options. The other option is PBA. If you want more social life, BIBA is a better option. PBA has pros and cons when compared to BIBA. I stayed at BIBA for 6 months and PBA for 3 months. I think, again, both have pros and cons, but I highly recommend you take one of these options if you don't know Korean and you want to go to Asia, or if you don't know Japanese, because when I went to Hon Dojo, my Japanese was very basic and it wasn't enough to have a conversation. Your social life will be very restricted and your communication during reviews will be very restricted as well. Someone like Diana or Blackie will be a huge turning point if you go through the same path I had. They used to have many more students, but once COVID got all of their students out of Korea, they never reopened BIBA officially. And so when I arrived, they didn't have any regular students. They were only focusing on temporary students. And COVID is something that changed Korean Go forever, because all of the other dojangs and schools, when I say school, it's probably a hagwon. I'm referring to one of those after schools activities that are so common in Korea. Well, those other schools, I don't know if they lost too many students from COVID. I don't think so, but baduk was highly impacted by it. Dojangs have now, I think, less than 50% of the attendance they used to have. Maybe people got used to being online. Maybe they found other means studying Go. Maybe they got disinterested. Attendance dropped a lot. I think Flower Baduk wasn't impacted, but all of the other schools were. Flower Baduk is a very special place in Asia because it's a center specific for you to take lessons from pros. If you go to a dojang, it's for training, and most of the students are children and teenagers. That's another issue if you're an adult, because most adults won't have too much in common with children and teenagers, right? Most adults would like to stay with other adults. Even if you know Korean and Japanese, going to a dojang will be restrictive in terms of social life because you're gonna see less adults. You might make friends with the teachers. Actually, they're much friendlier than you expect. Flower Baduk was created in 2014 by Hon Dojo and 3 other female professional players. Like I said, it was created to teach adult players. They usually find it difficult to find professional players to teach them. Having a place in the center of Seoul where you can go to have high quality learning sessions is apparently a game changer. Not a game changer, but it makes a difference to many people because, well, that center is going on for 12 years already. It's a fantastic place with an amazing environment. The surrounding area is very lively, and I think it's the best place for BIBA to happen. In the past, they had other schools they would visit and cycle through to teach their students at, but over time, they've been gravitating towards Barbaduk, mostly I think because the students like that place, but also Diana is very good friends with Mudongwon. Mudongwon is also the main caster at Baduk TV. If you're there, you might get to experience some Baduk related, Baduk TV related events, just like I did. They didn't happen too often, but I was privileged to get to meet some of the most famous players in the world, not only from Korea, because they have international competitions at KBA happening quite often. In fact, you don't need to be at BIBA, or you don't need to know Mundo One to be able to experience those events because they are sometimes public. It really helps to have someone like Diana or Blackie to get you priority seats to those events. I think they can also help with tourism in Korea in general. They know all the popular spots and the not so popular spots as well, the secret spots maybe. Overall, I think that if you would like to experience Korea, choose an option like BIBA as your starting point at least, because even if you know Korean, I think they will help a lot. They are there to help, of course. They help not only those who pay, they are friendly towards everyone. If you're planning on spending, let's say, 2 weeks, message them beforehand to draw up a plan for you to enjoy Korea to the max. The first dojang I visited in Korea was Jang Suyeong, and nowadays it's headed by Park Byung-kyu, a very close friend of Hon Sen. They used to be Yonggusengs together at that same dojang many years ago, maybe 20 plus years ago. Park Byung-kyu managed to become a pro in Korea, and well, later he became Jang Soo-young's main teacher, and now he's the owner. He also follows the same instructor teacher coach style that I experienced a bit with Hon Sen. He sometimes even gives not lectures but pep talks to his students, and I had never seen that from a Go teacher. I thought it was nice, and I think it can make a difference. During training sessions, I've heard that he does give in-game hints, not hints, but he tries to have his students maybe realize during the game that they might be mismanaging their emotions. But I'm not 100% sure, but I think that during my brief time there, I did see things like that happening, but he doesn't do it during important games in the dojo and only during training games. I was surprised and curious about that approach, but unfortunately, I wasn't able to study there for a variety of reasons. Later, I tried, during my stay, I tried studying there once again, but it wasn't possible because they had too many students for the amount of teachers they were hiring. They have good prices in the range of 1 million won per month, but meals are included, and that can make a huge difference for budgeting. They have a refectory that helps a lot with people who don't have enough money to afford studying Go in Seoul, which is a lot of their students. They also have a dormitory, but you're gonna be sleeping with many other students in the same room. They have many bunk beds per room. So keep that in mind if you want to go that route. And they are selective. They won't accept just about anyone. I think it's largely restricted to strength and the people they like. It might be one of the most difficult places to study at if you're a foreigner, because they also don't like foreigners, not because they are xenophobic or something. It's just that it's way more work for them. During my last tourist visa month last year, I asked Blackie if I could join a dojang, and he found Ryu Dongwan Dojang, which is very near KBA. That's also very near Flower Baduk, Chungam, the center part of Seoul. And that dojang happens to be, I wouldn't say too selective, but all of their students are inseis. Not necessarily strong inseis, but they have only strong players mostly. I think there was just one kid that wasn't an insei studying there, but all the others were 7 Dan Fox and above. In the past, inseis were stronger than that, at least on the lower end. There are less players in Korea now, and so the weakest female inseis were Fox 7 Dan, I think. I had some interesting games against them, but I was a bit weaker than that at that point in the year. But it wasn't too uninteresting for them, because if I were facing a very strong Insei, we would play with reverse Komi, and so I could stay in the game even if I had disaster or two. All the people there were very nice, but I don't think you can get to that dojang unless you're very strong without Blackie's help or someone intervening. After my time with BIBA, I chose to switch to another school, the Professional Baduk Academy, or PBA, which is headed by Cho Hye-on and her husband. They are both pro players, and their differentiating factor is games with pro players, daily games against pro players. It's usually gonna be her, but her husband has been more active recently, and you can request games against other pros, but that is budget constraint because she has to hire that other pro. I think that can help you a lot with learning good techniques, because during the games you're gonna see the pro playing a more classy style, better techniques. When it's played even, it's with reverse komi handicap, and ideally you're gonna improve and she's going to lower the reverse handicap. I think again that can help you a lot. But one thing I noticed over time after staying there for 2 months about, felt as if I needed more diversity. I was playing against other players as well, but I think it helps to play against pros, but not as often as daily. Maybe focusing your activities on playing against your own level mainly is better. But then again, it's a privilege to play against someone as strong as a pro on a daily basis, right? She has a lot of access to the international Go scene because over the years she has been traveling a lot. She's often the commentator for big events in Korea and abroad. She speaks English, Japanese, Korean, and Spanish. And so she can communicate with students even if they don't know one of those languages, one of the main languages for exchanges nowadays, right? So English is one of those main languages, but if you happen to only know Spanish, you come from a Spanish speaking country, you can still study at her school and get a lot from it, which is not usual. Not many people speak that many languages. If you want to travel, she does often travel to Japan and Taiwan to teach at events, and she's very good friends with Cho Sokbin, who has a school slash dojo in Nagoya. I don't know if you would call it a dojo, but pretty much a dojo, I think. Cho Sokbin is a very nice teacher. I really like his comments. I had lessons with him through maybe a month last year, and he has a very direct style, which is very unusual for Asian teachers. He will criticize you more directly than you would expect from an Asian teacher. So if you appreciate that style, maybe give him a shot, because he is accessible to us Westerners since he knows English. He speaks English very well. And he has many years of experience teaching kids and adults. He might be an interesting help for learning from a strong player online. During my last weeks in Korea, I found out about maybe the biggest dojang in Asia, outside of China, I guess. But in China, I don't know if they use the term dojang. It feels like they have very big schools. They are dojangs. So in Korea and Japan, this is probably the biggest dojang slash school. It's mostly a dojang, but they have a room full of weaker Dan players who are kids and trying to improve quickly, and they will improve quickly, but I think they range from maybe 3 to 6 Dan Fox. They have a more attainable level, which is only possible because the place is so big. They have 8 to 10 rooms that could take more than 30 people. So those rooms, I think, used to be classrooms for hagwons. they got converted into baduk studying rooms. Maybe in the past they were packed, but now since COVID kind of slashed by half the attendance at dojangs, now they have the same amount of rooms, but most of them are close to empty. They charge pretty fair prices. I think it's even cheaper than Suyeong Dojang, slightly cheaper. On the only day I went there, I had one game against one of the kids, and the teacher was very active. It really surprised me because he was also juggling so many more kids at the same time. It was borderline comical. I was really impressed and shocked and amused. Yeah, he was so strong as well because he was commenting on very nice and interesting shapes and sequences while solving other kids to make goals at the same time. And but wow, okay. But yeah, highly recommended. I think this is maybe the dojang where Shinjin So studied the most. Shinjin So hopped through many dojangs, and maybe officially he became a pro from this dojang because they have a huge panel of all the pros they managed to create. And Shinjin So is, of course, their most prominent player on that panel. And they even also have managed to get more than 1,000 wins from all of those pros, which is maybe not that impressive considering how many wins Shinjin So gets, but it's still very impressive. It's not easy to win games as a pro. All the other players are pros as well. Moving over to an appendix mention, we have the Quzhou Lanke internment camp. I think it could be referred to as a dojang, but it's a place in the outskirts of Quzhou in which many prodigious kids study to become pros. It's maybe the most intense all-in experience we have in Go in the world, because you're gonna get there, wake up at 7, study Tsume goals throughout most of the day, or maybe half the day, and then play, and then get back to sleep. At 7 a.m., somebody will knock on your door and get you out, so you don't even have the option of slacking off, even if you wanted to. It's borderline military training. Who doesn't get out of a concentration camp stronger, right? One of the downsides, or maybe a positive, is that it's in the middle of nowhere, apparently. So you can also not run away to the city. It's highly selective for the Chinese and for whoever outside of China wants to get in. But they have a partnership with the EGF. So if you're an European, then you might be able to get there. So this is all hearsay. Do check it out in the forums, or from more hearsay from the people who went there, or the people who heard from people who went there, just like me. I heard that if you don't know Chinese, especially, most of the reviews from the pros will be, this is good, this is bad, which actually happens often in Japan and Korea. The Japanese and Koreans will try to give you more nuance, but I don't know how far this good, this bad thing will go if you happen to know Chinese. I think it would be more nuanced if you know Chinese, but maybe the teachers are at their wits' end with the children, so they just don't bother with going beyond this good, this bad. It's really a factory environment from what I heard, because there isn't much else than you becoming stronger at Go at that place, I think. Okay, let's move over to some final thoughts. Over this slightly longer than 1 year period, I got stronger. However, I didn't get as strong as I hoped for such a long period. 1 year isn't that long, but I was expecting to get stronger than that. Most of the blame, if not all, is on me because I should have put in more effort. But I'm not dissatisfied because, again, it's only 1 year. And I've laid the foundation for becoming stronger in the future, I think. I have learned many other different methodologies. I experimented a lot. I actually focused more on experimenting during this 1 year period. It's one of the reasons I think I didn't get that much stronger because I was switching between methods, I believe. And you can't just use a method for 1 week and then switch to another. If you want to experience that, experience a specific method, you need to maybe use it for 1 month, 2 months, maybe even longer. Yeah, I don't feel dissatisfied. It's only 1 year. I got to know many more ways of teaching as well because I'm a Go teacher, not only a Go player. And in fact, I like teaching more than playing. So it was very important for me to explore all of the ways people teach in Asia. I don't think I explored all of the ways, but I saw many things that I didn't expect, that I didn't think were that valuable. I also learned how to approach and value tsume goals better. That's largely thanks to Diana Kosegi, because through my time in Japan, I was doing tsumegos, but not that many. I was thinking that for me to get value out of the tsumegos, it would take too long, or well, it would take long, but I was more focusing on playing the games themselves at that point. But during my time in Korea, especially the first few months, I think I realized that if you focus on very hard tsumegos on paper, you can get to fix your thinking quite a bit. That was one of the best or better experiments from last year. And I highly suggest you try that. Solving tsumegos on paper really improves your thinking because you need to get the tsumego right from start to finish and think about the best refutations from both ends. That's much harder to do if you're studying by yourself, but thanks to 101 weiqi, for example, you can use their search feature to check out the solutions for tsumegos you don't have the solution for. I also learned to love playing more because in the past I was quite before going to Japan and then Korea, I was not liking playing too much. I was more into teaching and watching games than playing. But over time, as I got better and learned more techniques, I learned to appreciate playing more. Unexpectedly, I came to love playing online more as well. At the beginning of my Go life, I was mainly an online player. But over time, I learned to enjoy playing in person so much more that playing online got a little bit dull. That period was also important for me to get to know more about the game in general. At BIBA, you're surrounded by strong players. You get to know both the pro scene in Korea, but also the higher than amateur players from all over the world, because you get visitors from the US, from Europe, and from some other countries in Asia. I developed more independence for learning Go, especially because I experimented with many other methods that will help me a lot in the future. I think I improved as a person as well, experiencing a wider range of types of thinking than we have here in Brazil. We have Asians in Brazil, but Asians in Brazil feel different from Asians in Asia. I made a lot of friends. I experienced life in Asia, their culture and the daily life. And I also learned some Korean and Japanese. My Korean and Japanese never got to be anything too functional for holding a conversation, but learning a language is special because everything you learn is a gain. You might be frustrated that you might not achieve fluency, you might not get past the basics, but anything you learn is a gain. It's access to another culture, it's access to another type of thinking. You can only gain from it. And lastly, to summarize it all, I would like to leave you with this. This 1 year of my life felt like 10. Regardless of a success or failure label, living at such a rate can only be an enriching blessing. Living abroad is very interesting. Every day feels like something new, especially if you go to such a distant culture, such a distant place. In Japan and later in Korea, I would wake up to so many different and interesting things that I would feel overflowingly alive. I was feeling as if I was cheating time. That's not the feeling you get in your native country usually. Slavoj Žižek, a philosopher and psychoanalyst, once was asked if he was happy, if he would like to be happy, and he answered that he would much rather be interesting than happy. But I think it would be better to be interested, to be motivated. In that way, I think we can cheat time. I hope you can find such an experience for yourself as well. It was an amazing time that I had in Asia. I'm back in Brazil and things are going fine here, but if you can, do strive for such an experience. Your experience won't be mine, but I hope you can cheat time as well. See you next time. Bye bye.